Dae-ho Kim sat in his office on the 43rd floor of the Human Embassy building. The massive structure reached into the purple sky of Nexus Prime, home to the Galactic Council. Through his window he could see ships from dozens of different worlds coming and going. Some looked like silver teardrops. Others were shaped like giant crystals or spinning wheels. Each one represented a different species that had joined the galactic community. The communication device on his desk started flashing red. Dae-ho had been expecting this call for weeks. He pressed the button and the hologram of a tall, blue-skinned alien appeared above his desk. The alien had 4 arms and eyes that glowed like tiny stars. "Ambassador Kim," the alien said in perfect English. "I am High Secretary Velthan of the Galactic Council. You are commanded to appear before the full council assembly in 3 standard days." Dae-ho kept his face calm, but his heart started beating faster. "May I ask what this concerns?" "The Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's place in galactic civilization," Velthan replied. "You will be given the opportunity to hear our final judgment." The word "final" hung in the air like a threat. Dae-ho had been a diplomat for 15 years, but before that, he had been a military strategist. He knew the sound of an ultimatum when he heard one. "I understand," Dae-ho said. "Will I be allowed to speak on behalf of my people?" "As is tradition for all condemned species, you will be permitted to offer your final words." Velthan's expression did not change. "Do not be late, Ambassador." The hologram disappeared, leaving Dae-ho alone in his office. He stared out the window for a long moment, watching the alien ships move through the sky. Each one represented a species that had bent the knee to the Council. Each one had given up their independence to join the galactic community. Dae-ho activated his secure communication system and sent an encrypted message to Earth. The message would take 6 hours to reach home, even through the quantum relay network. He needed to talk to Captain Boram Lee immediately. While he waited for the connection to establish, Dae-ho walked to his bookshelf. Among the diplomatic texts and alien language guides sat a small, worn book. It was a collection of human military history that his grandfather had given him. He opened it to a page he had read many times before. The page told the story of a small group of soldiers who had been surrounded by a much larger enemy force. When ordered to surrender, their commander had sent back a simple message: nuts. Those soldiers had held their position and eventually won the battle. Dae-ho smiled. Humans had always been stubborn that way. The communication system chimed. Boram's face appeared on the screen. She was younger than Dae-ho, with short black hair and sharp eyes. She wore the dark blue uniform of the Human Defense Force. "I got your message," Boram said without greeting. "How bad is it?" "They're calling it a final judgment," Dae-ho replied. "I think they're going to demand our complete surrender." Boram was quiet for a moment. "What do you need from me?" "How many ships do we have in the area?" "Officially, just my patrol cruiser and 2 escort ships." "And unofficially?" Boram grinned. "Admiral Park has been running training exercises in the outer system. Pure coincidence that he happens to be there with 30 ships." Dae-ho nodded. One sick Park was the kind of officer who believed in being prepared for anything. "Good. But I don't think this will come down to a fight. The Council has been around for 3,000 years. They don't stay in power by being stupid." "Then what's your plan?" "I'm going to do what they least expect," Dae-ho said. "I'm going to challenge them." Boram raised an eyebrow. "Challenge them how?" "The Council rules through fear and respect. Every species in the galaxy looks up to them as the ultimate authority. But what if someone showed that they're not as superior as everyone thinks? That's a dangerous game, Deho. Everything we do now is dangerous, he replied. If we submit, we lose our independence forever. If we fight, we lose everything. But if we can make them doubt themselves, Boram leaned forward. What do you need me to do? Contact Dr. Hyojin Choi on Luna Station. Tell her I need everything she knows about council psychology, and get in touch with Tae-Woo Nam. I need intelligence on how the other species really feel about council rule. Tae-Woo is deep undercover. It might be risky to contact him. We're past worrying about risks, Deho said. Also, I need you to talk to So Young Yu. Ask her if that project she's been working on is ready. The one she won't tell anyone about? That's the one. Boram was quiet for a moment. You really think this will work? Deho looked out his window again. A massive council battleship was passing by, its hull gleaming in the light of Nexus Prime's twin suns. The ship was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. It was a symbol of the council's power, designed to remind everyone who was in charge. I think the council has forgotten something important, Deho said. They've been the top predators for so long that they've forgotten what it's like to be challenged. Every species that joins them does so because they're afraid or because they want protection. No one has ever looked the council in the eye and said no, just because they refuse to back down. And you think we should be the first? I think we already are, Deho replied. We've been saying no to them in small ways ever since we joined the galactic community. We kept our military when they said we didn't need one. We refused to accept their technology restrictions when they said we were advancing too fast. We've been challenging them without even realizing it. Boram smiled. So now we make it official. Now we make it official, Deho agreed. But Boram, I need you to understand something. If this goes wrong, it won't just be the end of my career. It could be the end of human independence forever. Then we better make sure it doesn't go wrong, Boram said. I'll contact the others. How long do we have? 3 days to prepare for the most important conversation in human history. After the call ended, Deho sat back in his chair. Outside his window, the alien ships continued their endless dance through the sky. Soon, he would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and either secure humanity's future or seal its fate. He opened the old book again and read the story of those stubborn soldiers one more time. Then he began to plan. Captain Boram Lee's patrol cruiser moved quietly through the outer asteroid belt of the Nexus system. To any watching sensors, it looked like a routine patrol. No one would suspect that she was actually coordinating the most important military operation in human history. Her first call was to Admiral Won-Sik Park. The older man's weathered face appeared on her secure communication screen. Behind him, she could see the bridge of his flagship, the Incheon. Park had been fighting space pirates and border disputes for 20 years. He was the kind of commander who never backed down from a fight. Captain Lee, Park said, I assume this is about Ambassador Kim's situation. Yes, sir. He needs to know our exact capabilities in the area. Park smiled grimly. Tell him we have 37 ships conducting training exercises, all armed, all ready. But also tell him that if we start shooting, we won't win. The Council has thousands of ships stationed around Nexus Prime. He doesn't think it will come to a fight. Good, because even with our best technology, we're still outnumbered 100 to 1. Park paused. But, Captain, If the ambassador needs a demonstration of human stubbornness, my crews are ready to provide one. Bo-Ram's next call was to Dr. Hai-Jin Choi on Luna Station. The xenobiologist was humanity's leading expert on alien psychology. When her image appeared on screen, she was surrounded by holographic displays showing the anatomy of different alien species. Bo-Ram, Dr. Choi said, pushing her glasses up her nose. I've been expecting your call. I've been monitoring council communications, and they're definitely planning something big. What can you tell us about how they think? Dr. Choi touched one of her displays, bringing up an image of a typical council member. The important thing to understand is that every species in the council evolved on what we would call easy worlds. Stable climates, predictable weather, few natural disasters. They developed civilizations based on order and hierarchy because their environments never forced them to adapt quickly. And humans? Earth is what we call a death world in galactic terms. Constant climate changes, natural disasters, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts. Every few thousand years, something tried to wipe out life on our planet. The species that survived were the ones that could adapt, innovate, and refuse to give up. Bo-Ram leaned forward. So we're different. Completely different. The council species value stability above all else. They make plans that span centuries and stick to them. They follow rules because rules create order. But humans, Dr. Choi smiled. Humans see rules as suggestions. We see impossible situations as challenges. We adapt so quickly that it terrifies them. Terrifies them? Think about it. In the last 50 years, we've gone from barely having space travel to building ships that rival theirs. We've learned their technologies and improved on them. We've solved problems that stumped their best scientists for centuries. From their perspective, we're unpredictable and dangerous. Bo-Ram's third call was the most risky. Tai Wu Nam was deep undercover in council space, posing as a trade representative. Any communication with him could blow his cover, but they needed the intelligence he could provide. When Taewoo's face appeared on the ultra-secure channel, he looked tired. He had been undercover for 2 years, and the strain was showing. "This better be important," he said. "I'm supposed to be in a meeting with Regellian merchants in 10 minutes. How are the younger species feeling about council rule?" Bo-Ram asked without preamble. Taewoo's expression became serious. Restless. More than half the species that joined in the last 500 years are getting tired of being treated like children. The council makes all their important decisions for them. They're not allowed to develop certain technologies. They can't explore beyond their assigned territories. Would any of them support a challenge to council authority? Support it? Some of them would celebrate it. But they're too afraid to act. The council's response to rebellion has always been complete isolation. Cut off from galactic trade and technology, most species would collapse within a generation. What about the older species? The council's core supporters? Taewoo was quiet for a moment. That's where it gets interesting. I've been listening to their private communications. Some of them are starting to worry about the council's methods. They joined because they wanted protection and stability, not because they wanted to rule over others. The council's recent demands for total control are making even their allies nervous. One more question. If humanity were to challenge the council directly, how do you think they would respond? Honestly, I think they would panic. No one has ever challenged them directly. Their entire system is based on the idea that they are the ultimate authority. If someone proved that they could be defied, Taewoo shook his head. It would change everything. Bo-Ram's final call was to So-Young Yu, the civilian engineer who had been working on a mysterious project for the past 6 months. So-Young was brilliant, but eccentric. She had a habit of building things that shouldn't be possible. Bo-Ram, So-Young said cheerfully when her image appeared. Perfect timing. I just finished the final tests. Daeho wants to know if your project is ready. So-Young grinned. Oh, it's ready. It's more than ready. It's absolutely magnificent. What exactly does it do? I can't tell you that over a communication channel, even a secure one. But I can tell you this. If the ambassador wants to show the galaxy what humans are capable of, this will do it. Is it dangerous? Only to people who think they know what's impossible. After finishing her calls, Bo-Ram compiled her intelligence and sent it to Daeho through the quantum relay. Then she contacted Admiral Park again. Admiral, I need you to prepare the fleet for something unusual. Define unusual. We might need to demonstrate human capabilities in front of the entire galactic community. Park raised an eyebrow. Any particular capabilities? Our ability to do things that everyone else thinks are impossible. The Admiral smiled. Captain, that's what we do best. Meanwhile, back on Luna Station, Dr. Choi was analyzing everything she knew about Council psychology. She had spent years studying how different alien species thought and behaved. The Council. Species were predictable in their predictability. They liked order, hierarchy, and established procedures. But humans were chaos agents. They thrived on disorder and uncertainty. They found creative solutions to impossible problems. They refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. Dr. Choi opened a new file and began typing her recommendations for Ambassador Kim. The key to challenging the Council was not to beat them at their own game, but to change the rules entirely. On the other side of the galaxy, Taiwu Nam sat in his small apartment, thinking about the conversation with Bo-Ram. He had been undercover for so long that he sometimes forgot what it was like to be proud of being human. But tonight, as he looked out at the alien city below, he remembered. Humans didn't give up. They didn't bow down to authority just because it was authority. They asked questions like why and what if and who says we can't. In 3 days, Ambassador Daeho Kim would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Taewoo hoped he would remember what made humans special. Not their technology or their military might, but their absolute refusal to accept that something couldn't be done. So young Yu worked late into the night, making final adjustments to her project. She couldn't tell anyone what it was, but she knew it would work. It had to work. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was proving that the impossible was just another word for challenge accepted. The pieces were falling into place. In 3 days, humanity would either secure its place in the galaxy or face complete isolation. But win or lose, they would do it on their own terms. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest enclosed space Daeho had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into shadows high above, and the walls curved away in both directions until they met somewhere behind him. Thousands of seats were arranged in concentric circles, each one occupied by a representative from a different world. Daeho walked alone down the center aisle toward the speaking platform. His footsteps echoed in the vast space despite the sound dampeners built into the floor. Every eye in the hall was on him. Some showed curiosity, others showed pity. Many showed fear. At the center of the hall, 13 massive thrones rose above everything else. These were the seats of the Council of 13, the most powerful beings in known space. Each throne was carved from a different material: crystal, metal, stone, living wood. Each one represented a species that had earned their place through conquest, wisdom, or sheer age. Council Prime Zethkar sat on the highest throne. His species, the Veltari, had been spacefaring for over 5,000 years. They were tall, graceful beings with silver skin and eyes like liquid mercury. Zethkar himself was ancient even by Veltari standards. He had ruled the council for 800 years. As Deho approached the speaking platform, Zethkar raised one long-fingered hand. The murmur of conversation that had filled the hall died instantly. Ambassador Kim of the species known as humanity, Zethkar's voice carried clearly through the hall without amplification. You have been summoned to hear the Council's judgment regarding your species' place in galactic civilization. Deho stepped onto the platform and looked up at the 13 thrones. He had prepared for this moment for 3 days, but standing, here now, surrounded by the representatives of thousands of worlds, he felt very small and very alone. The Council has observed humanity's behavior since your species achieved space travel 57 standard years ago, Zethkar continued. In that time, you have shown a disturbing pattern of insubordination and reckless advancement, Counselor. Velnara, representing the insectoid Zephyrians, leaned forward. You have developed weapons that exceed safety parameters established by this council. You have explored regions of space that were declared off-limits. You have questioned decisions that have stood for millennia. Most concerning of all, added Counselor Thekron of the crystalline Nexari, you have influenced other young species to follow your example. The Alteran Republic has begun developing military technologies beyond their authorization. The Kepler Confederacy has started exploring the forbidden zones. This pattern of defiance threatens the stability that has kept the galaxy peaceful for 3,000 years. Deho listened without interrupting. He had expected these accusations. They were all true from a certain point of view. Zethkar stood from his throne. At his full height, he was nearly 3 meters tall. Therefore, the Council has reached a unanimous decision. Humanity will submit to complete technological and cultural integration within one galactic standard cycle. You will dismantle your military forces. You will accept Council oversight of all research and development. You will cease all unauthorized exploration. In exchange, you will be granted the protection and guidance of the galactic community. The hall was completely silent. Deho could hear his own heartbeat. This is not a negotiation, Zethkar continued. This is our final offer. Accept these terms or face complete isolation from galactic civilization. Your trade routes will be closed. Your diplomatic missions will be expelled. You will be alone in the void. Zethkar sat back down and gestured. To Deho, as is traditional for condemned species, you are permitted to offer your final words before this assembly. Deho stepped forward to the speaking podium. In the 3 days since receiving the Council's summons, he had written and rewritten his speech dozens of times. He had prepared logical arguments, emotional appeals, and desperate pleas. But standing here now, looking up at beings who saw themselves as gods among mortals, he realized that none of those speeches would work. The Council expected him to beg. They expected him to plead for mercy or more time. They expected him to accept their authority and submit to their will. Every species before humanity had done exactly that. But humans, Deho thought, had never been very good at doing what was expected. Honored counselors, Daeho began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. I have listened to your offer. I understand the choice you have given us. He paused, looking around the vast hall at the thousands of representatives watching him. On behalf of humanity, I reject your terms. A gasp went through the assembly. Several council members leaned forward in their thrones. Furthermore, Daeho continued, I formally challenge the authority of this council to make such demands. The hall erupted. Voices rose in a dozen different languages. Some representatives stood from their seats. Others activated communication, devices to report this unprecedented development to their home worlds. Zethkar raised his hand again, and silence returned. His mercury eyes were fixed on Daeho with an expression of complete disbelief. Ambassador Kim, Zethkar said slowly, no species has directly challenged the authority of this council in 3,000 years. Then we're overdue, Daeho replied. Councillor Velnara's wings buzzed with agitation. The arrogance of this creature is beyond belief. Does he not understand the forces arrayed against his pitiful species? I understand perfectly, Daeho said, turning to face her. You have thousands of ships. You control the trade routes. You have technologies that humanity can barely comprehend. By every measure that matters to you, we should bow down and accept whatever terms you offer. He turned back to Zethkar. But you're forgetting something important. Humanity has never been impressed by impossible odds. Councillor Thekran's crystalline form chimed with what Daeho had learned was laughter. And what exactly do you propose to do about it, Ambassador? Will you declare war on the entire galaxy? Nothing so crude, Daeho said. I propose a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Of why you should be very careful about underestimating humanity. Zethkar leaned forward, on his throne. Despite himself, he seemed intrigued. What kind of demonstration? A traditional challenge, Daeho said. Each side presents their greatest achievement. Whichever side presents the more impressive accomplishment wins the right to set the terms for the other. The council members looked at each other. Councillor Velnara spoke first. This is ridiculous. What could a species barely 50 years in space possibly show us that would be impressive? Are you afraid to find out? Daeho asked. The insult hung in the air. Around the hall, representatives held their breath. No one had ever spoken to a council member that way. Zethkar's eyes narrowed. Very well, Ambassador. We accept your challenge. But understand this. When we demonstrate our superiority, humanity will submit to our authority without question. You will have no choice but to accept whatever terms we decide to impose. And if we win, you won't. But if we do, Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. If your species somehow manages to present an achievement that surpasses ours, the Council will reconsider our position regarding humanity's independence. It wasn't a promise of freedom, but it was more than they had started with. Agreed, Daeho said. When and where? Here, in 3 standard days. The galaxy will watch as the Council demonstrates why we have ruled for 3 millennia. Daeho smiled. 3 days should be enough. As he walked back down the center aisle toward the exit, Daeho could hear the buzz of excited conversation behind him. He had just done something that hadn't been done in 3,000 years. He had looked the most powerful beings in the galaxy in the eye and told them no. Now he just had to prove that humanity could back up their words. Outside the assembly hall, Daeho activated his communication device. Boram, it's done. 3 days to show the galaxy what humans can do. What do you need from us? Deho looked up at the alien sky above Nexus Prime. Somewhere out there, Admiral Park and his ships were waiting. Somewhere else, Dr. Choi was analyzing alien psychology. And somewhere, So-Young Yu was putting the finishing touches on whatever impossible thing she had built. Everything we've got, Deho said. And maybe a little more than that. Understood. Hold our beer, Ambassador. Deho laughed despite the gravity of the situation. That's exactly what I'm planning to do. 3 days later, the Grand Assembly Hall was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every world in the galaxy had traveled to Nexus Prime to witness the unprecedented challenge. Even species that rarely left their home systems had sent observers. This was history in the making. Deho stood on the platform again, but this time he was not alone. Captain Boram Lee stood beside him in her dress uniform. Behind them, a holographic display showed the positions of human ships throughout the local system. Across the hall, the Council of 13 had arranged their own display. Massive screens showed images of their greatest technological achievements. Spanning thousands of years, Zethkar rose from his throne. Citizens of the galaxy, you are about to witness the resolution of humanity's challenge to Council authority. The Council will demonstrate first, as is our right as the challenged party. The lights in the hall dimmed, and the Council's presentation began. The first image showed the construction of Nexus Prime itself. The artificial planet had been built over 500 years by combining the resources of 12 star systems. It was a perfect sphere of metal and crystal, capable of supporting millions of inhabitants from hundreds of different species. Behold the crown jewel of galactic civilization, Councillor Velnara announced. A world built through the combined efforts of our greatest species, representing the pinnacle of cooperation and engineering. The next image showed the Galactic Trade Network, a system of space stations and shipping routes that connected every inhabited world. The network moved trillions of tons of goods every year, enabling prosperity and peace throughout known space. More achievements followed. The great library that contained the collected knowledge of every spacefaring species. The peacekeeping fleet that had ended wars and protected trade routes for 3 millennia. The terraforming initiative that had made hundreds of dead worlds habitable. Each achievement was more impressive than the last. The assembled representatives murmured in appreciation as the Council displayed the full scope of their power and accomplishment. Finally, the presentation reached its climax. The screens showed the Council's latest and greatest achievement, the Stellar Engineering Project. Over the past 500 years, they had moved an entire star system, relocating 6 planets and their populations to a more stable orbit around a younger sun. This project required the coordination of 57 species, Zethkar announced. It represents the ultimate expression of our technological mastery and organizational capability. No force in the galaxy could accomplish such a feat without the wisdom and guidance of the Council. The hall erupted in applause. Even species that had grievances with the Council had to admit that moving an entire star system was an incredible achievement. Zethkar gestured toward Deho. Now, Ambassador, show us what humanity has accomplished in your brief 57 years among the stars. Deho stepped forward to the podium. In the 3 days since issuing his challenge, human ships had been arriving in the Nexus system. The official count was 43 vessels, mostly small patrol ships and research vessels. Compared to the thousands of Council ships in the area, it was a laughably small force. Honored Councilors, Deho began, Your achievements are indeed impressive. 500 years to move a star system, 500 years to build an artificial planet. These projects demonstrate incredible patience, planning, and resources. He paused, looking around the hall. But they also demonstrate something else. They show that you think in terms of centuries and millennia. You plan, you organize, you follow protocols, you do things the way they have always been done. Daeho activated his communication device. Captain Lee, please bring in the demonstration team. The main doors of the assembly hall opened, and a group of humans in work clothes entered. They were led by Junho Shin, a civilian engineer who looked completely out of place in the grand hall. Behind him came teams of technicians, scientists, and ordinary workers. "What is the meaning of this?" Counselor Thekran demanded. "Where are your warships, your technological marvels?" "Right here," Daeho replied, gesturing to the humans, spreading throughout the hall. "These are miners, engineers, farmers, teachers, and mechanics. They represent the greatest achievement of humanity." Laughter rippled through the assembly. Several council members looked amused by what they saw as an absurd gesture. Daeho ignored the laughter. 3 days ago, I sent these people a message. I told them that humanity needed to solve 17 problems that have stumped the galaxy's best scientists for generations. I told them they had 72 hours to do the impossible. He activated the holographic display, showing a list of 17 seemingly unsolvable challenges. These were problems that the Council's best minds had worked on for decades without success. Faster-than-light communication without quantum relays, terraforming technology that could work on any world in under a decade, energy sources that could power entire civilizations without environmental damage. Impossible problems, Daeho said. The kind of challenges that would require centuries of research and planning according to council methods. Min Seo-han, a young woman in coveralls, stepped forward. "Actually, Ambassador, we finished yesterday. We had extra time, so we solved 3 bonus problems, too." The hall fell silent. Junho activated a portable holographic projector. The faster-than-light communication problem was solved by realizing that quantum entanglement could be stabilized using gravitational fields. We built a working prototype in 18 hours. The hologram showed a small device no larger than a human hand. This communicator can send messages instantly across galactic distances without requiring relay stations. Counselor Vel-Nara leaned forward. "Impossible. The mathematics alone would take years to verify." "Already done," said Kyung-Min Bae, a mathematician who didn't look old enough to have finished university. "The calculations are available for review. We also wrote a program that can verify the math in real time." The presentation continued. Problem after problem that had stumped the galaxy's best minds for generations had been solved by humans in less than 3 days. Not through superior technology or vast resources, but through creative thinking and stubborn refusal to accept that something couldn't be done. The terraforming breakthrough came from Yoon-ji Song, a farmer who had pointed out that they were thinking about the problem backwards. Instead of trying to change planets to suit life, they had developed organisms that could adapt any environment to support human-style agriculture in a matter of months. The energy problem was solved by a team led by a former mechanic who had figured out how to extract usable power from the quantum fluctuations in empty space. The technology was so simple that it could be built with materials available on any inhabited world. But the real showstopper came from So Young-Yu herself. She had been working quietly in a corner of the hall, assembling something that looked like a collection of spare parts. The Council's greatest achievement was moving a star system in 500 years, So Young announced cheerfully. "That's very impressive." but we thought we could do better. She activated her device, and suddenly the hall was filled with a new kind of energy. The air itself seemed to shimmer and dance. This is a pocket dimension generator, So Young explained. It creates a completely stable artificial space-time bubble. You can use it to move objects instantaneously across any distance, or to create new spaces that exist outside normal reality. She adjusted a control, and suddenly the assembly hall seemed to expand. The walls moved outward, the ceiling lifted, higher, and everyone could feel that they were somehow in a space much larger than should have been possible. Moving a star system? So Young grinned. This could move an entire galaxy if you wanted it to. We built it in 3 days using spare parts from a ship repair facility. The hall was completely silent. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy stared at the impossible device that violated everything they thought they knew about physics. Zethkar finally found his voice. This is not possible. The energy requirements alone are provided by quantum fluctuation extraction, So Young replied. Infinite clean energy from empty space. We solved that problem too. Deho stepped back to the podium. Honored counselors, this is what humanity has accomplished in 3 days. Not through vast resources or centuries of planning, but through the simple human belief that there's always a solution if you're willing to think differently. He looked around the hall at the stunned faces of the galactic representatives. You asked what we could possibly show you that would be impressive. We've shown you 17 impossible problems solved in 3 days. We've shown you technology that makes your greatest achievements look like children's toys. But most importantly, we've shown you something that your rigid hierarchical system can never produce. Deho paused, letting his words sink in. We've shown you what happens when you tell humans that something can't be done. We've shown you why you should never, ever underestimate a species that grew up on a world trying to kill them. The silence stretched on for long moments. Finally, Zethkar spoke. How? He asked simply. Deho smiled. We held your beer. The silence in the grand assembly hall stretched for what felt like an eternity. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy stared at the humans who had just demonstrated technology that should have been impossible. The pocket dimension. Generator hummed quietly in the corner, casually violating the fundamental laws of physics as understood by galactic science. Zethkar remained standing on his throne, his mercury eyes fixed on Deho. For 800 years, he had ruled the council without ever encountering a challenge he couldn't handle through established protocols. But there was no protocol for this situation. Ambassador Kim, Zethkar said finally, his voice carrying a note of uncertainty for the first time in centuries. What you have shown us defies our understanding of what is possible. That's exactly the point, Deho replied. Your understanding of what's possible is limited by your experience. You've spent 3,000 years perfecting the same approaches to the same problems. You've created a system where innovation is discouraged and conformity is rewarded. Counselor Velnara's wings buzzed with agitation. Our system has brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy for millennia. Your system has brought stagnation, corrected Dr. Hyojin Choi, stepping forward from the group of humans. In the past 1,000 years, how many truly revolutionary discoveries has the Council made? How many problems have you solved that previous generations couldn't? The Council members looked at each other uncomfortably. The truth was that most of their recent achievements had been variations on existing technology, scaled up through the application of vast resources and long timelines. The stellar engineering project took 500 years to complete, Dr. Choi continued. That's not because it was technically difficult. It's because your system requires consensus from 57 species, approval from hundreds of committees, and adherence to protocols that were written centuries ago. You've made change so difficult that it rarely happens at all. Counselor Thekron's crystalline form chimed with skepticism. And you propose to replace our tested methods with chaos? Not chaos, said Junho Shin. Controlled improvisation, adaptive problem-solving, the willingness to try new approaches when old ones don't work. A new voice spoke from the assembly seats. Representative Kolthan of the Alteran Republic stood up. I would like to hear more about these human methods. Murmurs arose throughout the hall. The Alterans were one of the younger species, having joined the galactic community only 300 years ago. They had been mentioned by the Council as one of the species influenced by human behavior. Zethkar's eyes flashed with anger. Representative Kolthan, you are out of order. This challenge is between the Council and humanity. With respect, Council. Prime, Kolthan replied. This demonstration affects all of us. If humans can solve in days what we have struggled with for generations, perhaps we should be asking ourselves why. More representatives began to stand. The Kepler Confederacy, the Meridian Alliance, the free worlds of Epsilon. One by one, the younger species were finding their voices. The Council forbids us from developing certain technologies, said Representative Yilvara of the Meridian Alliance. They tell us these restrictions are for our own safety, but if humans can solve the energy crisis without environmental damage, why are we still restricted to fusion power? The exploration bans keep us confined to our home regions, added Representative Zonkar of the Free Worlds. But humans have explored further in 50 years than most of us have in centuries. What discoveries might we have made if we had been allowed to follow their example? Zethkar raised his hand for silence, but for the first time in 3 millennia, the gesture was ignored. Voices rose throughout the hall as species after species began to voice complaints that had been building. For generations, Counselor Velnara tried to restore order. These restrictions exist for good reasons. Without proper oversight, younger species will develop technologies they cannot control. Like we did? Asked So Young-Yu cheerfully. She gestured to her pocket dimension generator. This device could theoretically destroy the universe if used incorrectly, but we figured out how to use it safely in less than a day. How? Demanded Counselor Thekron. We tested it carefully, monitored the results, and adjusted our approach when we encountered problems. It's called the scientific method. Most species develop it eventually if you don't forbid them from taking risks. Admiral Wansik Park stepped forward. Throughout the demonstration, he had remained quiet, observing the reactions of the various council species. His military experience had taught him to read the political currents in any situation. Counselors, Park said, I think you're missing the larger point. This isn't about human superiority or council failures. This is about the difference between a system designed to maintain order and a system designed to enable growth. He gestured toward the assembled representatives. Look around this hall. Half the species here are younger than humanity. They've been following council guidance for centuries, but they've never been allowed to reach their full potential. They're like children who are never allowed to leave home. And you would have them make the same mistakes that nearly destroyed your own world? Zethkar asked. We would have them learn from our mistakes while making their own discoveries, Park replied. Earth was a dangerous place, yes. But that danger taught us resilience, adaptability, and innovation. Those qualities didn't make us destructive. They made us builders. Senior Counselor Velnoth spoke for the first time. As the eldest member of the council, representing a species that had been spacefaring for 6,000 years. His words carried enormous weight. "In my long life," Velnoth said slowly, "I have seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. I have watched species reach great heights and then collapse into ruin. The Council was created to prevent such collapses by providing stability and guidance." He paused, looking directly at Daiho. "But perhaps we have been too focused on preventing failure and not focused enough on enabling success." A shocked silence fell over the council thrones. Velnoth was known as the most conservative member of the council, a steadfast defender of traditional methods. "Elder Counselor," Zethkar said carefully, "surely you are not suggesting we abandon the principles that have guided us for 3 millennia? "I am suggesting we remember why those principles were created," Velnoth replied. "We sought to bring peace and prosperity to the galaxy. Have we achieved that goal, or have we simply created a beautiful cage?" Representative Kolthan stood again. "The Alteran Republic formally requests permission to adopt human problem-solving methods for our own research and development." "The Kepler Confederacy seconds that request," said Representative Zonkar. "The Meridian Alliance agrees," added Representative Yilvara. One by one, nearly 40 species requested permission to follow humanity's example. The younger species were unanimous, and several older species were joining them. Zethkar looked around the hall with growing alarm. The careful order that had maintained galactic stability for 3,000 years was beginning to unravel. "This is chaos," he said. "No," Daiho replied. "This is evolution." He stepped forward to address the full assembly. "Counselors, representatives, citizens of the galaxy, humanity does not seek to overthrow the existing order. We seek to improve it." "How?" asked Velnoth. "By creating a new model. Instead of a rigid hierarchy where wisdom flows only from the top down, we propose a network where innovation can come from anywhere. Instead of requiring consensus before change can happen, we allow experimentation and adapt based on results." Dr. Choi activated a holographic display showing a new organizational structure. The Council could become a coordination body rather than a control mechanism, set basic safety standards, facilitate communication between species, provide resources for joint projects, but allow each species to develop and explore according to their own abilities and interests. "And if they make dangerous mistakes?" asked Counselor Velnara. "Then they learn from those mistakes and the rest of us learn with them," Dr. Choi replied. "The alternative is a galaxy where no one ever makes mistakes because no one is ever allowed to try anything new." Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. Around the hall, thousands of representatives waited for his response. Finally, he spoke. "The Council will consider these proposals," he said formally. "With respect, Council Prime," Daiho said, "we're not making proposals. We're informing you of what's going to happen. Whether the Council adapts to the new reality or not is up to you." The words hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone was telling the Council that they didn't have a choice. Velnoth stood slowly from his throne. "Ambassador Kim, on behalf of my species, I accept your new model. We will work with humanity to develop better methods of galactic governance." One by one, other council members stood. Not all of them. Velnara and several others remained seated, their expressions hostile. But enough stood to make it clear that the old system was finished. Zethkar was the last to stand. When he did, it was with the air of someone accepting inevitable defeat. "Very well," he said. The Council accepts the new paradigm. Ambassador Kim, you are appointed as the first human representative to the Reformed Council. May the galaxy survive your innovations.